Good morning, everyone. I'm Anamika from Incubating, and I welcome you all to today's GitHub Developer Tech Camp. Thank you for coming on a Saturday morning. To introduce, GitHub Developer Tech Camp aims to cultivate and inspire future leaders by accommodating a platform to share ideas and create a space for innovation. It is a platform where innovators and industry experts meet from diverse fields like edtech, health tech, fintech. The event provides a platform for collaboration, discussion, connecting colleges and students across India to ignite their passion to scale up India's growth story. In the next 4 days of DevCamp, you would be attending sessions from industry experts and will be working on projects which will be introduced to you shortly. You will be working on a project, and by the end of the day, you would submit the work accomplished during the day in a repository that would be shared with you, along with other specific details that would be shared during the session. I would now like to invite Kaushik Roy, Principal Architect, Incubating, to take the session ahead and share some knowledge about Advanced Git and GitHub. Kaushik, over to you.
Thank you, Anamika, and good morning, everyone, for coming up this early on a Saturday morning. So today, we all have gathered here for the GDTC, that is GitHub Developer Tech Camp, the inaugural session. Without wasting of much of time, what we'll be doing today is that we'll be getting through to understand what actually GitHub Developer Tech Camp would be, a 4-day tech camp in which we would be participating, we would be submitting our code base, we would be working around, we would be working along closely with industry experts. We would be getting to understand what GitHub pages are. We would be forking, we would be generating a pull request, and actually get to understand how actually version control works in the day-to-day life. So with this, what we'd be doing is that we'd be first getting to understand what is the course curriculum for GDTC, that is what would be the architecture of the entire event, what we'd be doing over the period, which would be our common source of interaction, what we'd be doing over there, what would be the guidelines, and then over to basic understandings of Git and GitHub and getting started with the day one task, that is today. So briefly to sum up it all, we have a 4-day task at our hand, with which today we would be emphasizing only on the day one, that is today, what needs to be done by the participants, what is not required. So I'll just quickly share my screen and as well as stop my cam so that we do not get any hindrance. So, and once again, good morning, everyone, and welcome for those who are joining in late. We would be going on right now. Is that we'll be getting to understand what GitHub Developer Tech Camp is. So basically, the core concept of GitHub Developer Tech Camp is to make the students who are actually the part of Code Innovation series and have participated and attended a workshop and a hackathon to inculcate into them what are the next steps involved while you are using GitHub. How do you communicate with Git? Actually, how do you work in collaboration with team members? And how to utilize certain other features like GitHub Actions, through which you can deploy your code directly, you can maintain the pipeline, and other specifications like GitHub pages, how to raise issues, how to maintain teams on GitHub, and so on and so forth. Because before we had only covered up or touched only that top of the iceberg, but there remains an iceberg beneath the sea which needs to be explored right now. So with this, what we'll be doing is that we would be just going through the basics of what we would be doing over the next couple of days. So we would be having mentors from our team as well as from the industry who would be helping you throughout the 4-day journey. We would have various industry connects, that is in the mentors and speakers would be coming up for the next 3 days to explain you, to work along with you, and to make you understand how actually industry is working today. We would be giving you an exposure to open source, so we would be contributing our code base directly to organizations through which we could achieve the badges of being an organizational contributors. We would be receiving certificates and badges, and there are n number of things that would come up over the period of next few days. So, briefing in next, what we'll be doing is that we'll be covering up the day by day exploration or tactics that we'll be having. So, first on day one, we'll be having right now that we'll be having a GitHub workshop that would be an advanced tier. We would be announcing the challenges, the three domains in which we would be working, what would be the guidelines. Then, by the end of the day, we would be assigning the mentors, introducing the mentors on how they would be helping you. Then we would be redirecting each and every participant to the boilerplate pull request. So we would be asking everyone to generate a fork and then work along with the project. And with this, the submissions would be made for the day one progress checker. So these are the activities that we'll be doing, and the central forum or the platform for all these activity would be our Slack communication workspace, wherein I hope all of us have already joined, so we'll be working in over there as well. The next day, that is day two, we would be connecting with the mentors. So we do introduce ourselves to the mentors, and the mentors would be helping you throughout. And at the end of the day, as like day one, we need to submit the code. So each day we will be submitting certain base of code which would be working around. And at the end on day three, that is, we would be understanding how to optimize a DevOps tool chain. We would have some expert session from one of the most reputed organizations out there. And then we again at the end of the day, so each day we will have a task that needs to be completed, and at the end of the day we will be submitting the code onto GitHub. Now, on the final day, what we'll be doing is that we would be submitting. So, basically, what we are following is that we are following an organizational method wherein we generate a pull request, and that is being managed by different organization maintainers or repository maintainers, which we call, and then we would be generating the final PR on the fourth day and the final day. And with that, we would be summing up this GitHub Developer Tech Camp. And to sum it all, we would be going through the entire procedure which GitHub allows us to understand, to go through different features. So when we are over on any of the repositories that we see today, we have certain queries, we have certain intrigues that what is an issue, what is a pull request, what is an action, and what is project. So these all things will get to understand what are the insights, how to check and how to track the faults and bugs which are actually appearing or occurring in the GitHub pages. Or let's say if we are running a project, so and we have faced certain issues, like how do we cover up these issues, how do we come over these issues, what shall we do next, how do we track the issue. So in those case, how do we backtrack ourselves, how do we revert to the changes. So suppose someone from the team has goofed up, and how do we get back to it. So we'll be getting to understand all of this throughout this period. So before wasting much of time, what we'll be doing, the first part of the day would be that we'd go through understanding Git and GitHub. We would be working on it, covering some basics of it, and then we would be heading over to the original task. So for all the activities, stay tuned onto the Slack channel, Slack workspace. I'd request a few of my teammates to just drop the Slack link onto the chat itself, so that those who haven't joined it yet, please do join them. And all the entire timeline should be detailed over here with the day-to-day tasks being described. So the next thing that we'll be doing is that we would simply head over to the PowerPoint presentation and get to understand what Git and GitHub is, for those who have not yet been able to get a grasp of it and haven't worked around with it. So basically, the outline for today would be that we would be understanding versioning, what version controls are, a small story of Git, an introduction to GitHub, uh, then what we'll be doing is that we will set up Git onto our systems if we haven't done yet. We'll be understanding repositories, staging and committing. We'll be branching and then merging different sets of code. So these all things would be done over the next period of 1 or so hours, and then we'll be heading straight to understanding what version control is actually doing. So with this, what we'll be doing is that we will understand what version systems are and how do we actually maintain them. So basically, what we do see today is that Windows has Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, and prior to that, we used to know Windows Vista, Windows 95, Windows 98, and so on and so forth. So, at the core of the concept, we figured out that okay, what was the need? It could be called Microsoft Windows. Just taking an example of a software, what was the need that we needed something like a numbering system which assigned it a number. So, basically, when you are working on certain things and you are upgrading it or modifying with each and every iteration, what you do need to do is that you will have to distinguish it from the other versions or other previous iterations that you have made. And how do we confirm that? We need to confirm that by placing it in placeholder. And what a placeholder is, a placeholder is just a namesake which allows something to be distinguished from the other upgrades or other modules of the same object. So, in similarly, in software industry, wherein we work in lots of software products, we iterate different products, we work on them, we usually come up with changes over the period. So, the Google that we see today was not the Google that we saw in 1990s. And how do we came across those? How do we actually see those? So that's the reason why a software industry comes up with repetitive changes and modifications which every passing day. So today what Google is looking right now may be different from what it may look 10 days back. So how do we cover up these changes? So to do that, what we do is that we assign them certain numbers or versions for those products. Now, the question arises, there are different versions. Why do we need Git? Because at the end of the day, we could simply create a project folder and we can just mark it as version 1, version 2, version 3, and so on and so forth. So, how do we do that and how do we attain that? So, the need for the Git was that to keep track of changes, the first and foremost thing. So, how do we keep track of a change? Let's say I am defining a module which is making up a website, and previously I had worked on certain other iterations, we had worked on certain other figures and features. Now, how do we attain the task that I want to do? And let's suppose I had made certain changes and now I want to remove those changes and then add on certain changes. So basically, just getting to the most core concept of computer science programming or logical analysis. Let's say we have got a program in which we have defined three int type variables, which are a, b, and c, and we have saved it. Now, suppose we need to add a new file. Now, the moment we add a new file, there's a change which needs to be kept a track of. Now, when we are talking about keeping a track, what usually happens is that we had three variables in the beginning, then a variable d was added. So right now we had got four variables. And at the end, we thought that okay, let's remove all the variables, that is b and c, and then only keep a and d. So we remove the two lines from between. Now assume the task owner or the operational team just says that okay, the final version that you have got, which has only two variables, is not the apt version. You should have the mid version in which you had four variables. So what do you do then? You will have to keep a track of the changes, because if you do not keep a track, you wouldn't even know that somewhere in between you had kept four variables. So the first and foremost thing is that Git allows you to keep track of the changes which you are doing or making throughout the project development's life cycle. Then the next most important thing is collaboration. So what do we mean by collaboration? Let's say there's a front end developer, there's a back end developer. Now just forget those and keep to the fact that there are two variables, A and D, and there are three other people who are working remotely at different other places. And what do they need to do? They need to contribute. And how do they contribute? They will have to contribute by adding or making certain changes onto their systems. Now, suppose since all the three people, so since none of the people are same, all of them have their own requirements. And when we talk of requirements, what does usually happen is that each one of may be adding their own requirements and each of one of may be having their own necessities and needs. So how do we tackle that issue? Because for example, a person A may add a variable C, a person B may add a variable B. So each one has got their own requirements and they come up with different solutions to it, because naming a variable is not a convention throughout. So how do we collaborate and keep these changes? Now let's say all these changes were made over the period and all of them have a different copy of it. So how do we basically pull these changes? So to act upon it, we could have a master repository or we could have a master folder wherein different people from different domains or different experience level contribute to the same repository or to the same code base. Now, at the end of the day, we would be having three iterations, each of different people, but there would be one common folder or code base wherein we have the features of all the three which caters to them. So, this is how we help collaboration using Git. Now, the next thing that comes up to mind is that when we are doing a software development, what we do usually face is that we come up across different features in which we do certain changes. So while we are doing certain test changes, we lose the original. So what usually happens is that I have made certain changes onto my repository or to my project folder. I have been working on them, and then suddenly I feel that okay, this test has failed. Now how do I get back to the original? So let's say, now remember, we would all be practicing this live, so no need to worry. We would be running it through precisely. Now let's say, since I had added three variables over here, and now I felt that I need to add a variable d. So what I would be usually doing is that I will simply add d to it. Now if I forget that what I had made the change of, I do usually lose the original file. But rather, in Git, what it does allow us to do is that we create a different branch for it, and then we can work around with it. So this allows you to have and maintain different branches at the same time. Now let's say someone just told me that okay, the changes that you had made 5 days ago were the one which you require to have. Now, in that case, what we'd be doing is that we'd simply, once we have created a file, we have added a few files, and then we'll simply remove the two files. And how to do that? We'll simply just revert back to the stage wherein we had seen those changes, we had come across those changes which needs to be reverted to. And to revert back to that change, what we need to do is that we will simply have to go back to that index or the stage that was kept the track of. And to do that, we can simply revert back at any time. So these are the features that we usually do. And with this, we are able to work around precisely and perfectly with different software tools in different versions in the industry as well as along with the team. Now, distribution. How does actually distribution work? Because at the core of the day, it is not that only one person would be working around and he would be the master owner. Rather, once we are working on a project idea or we are developing a project, what we do see is that there are different versions that are maintained, and to maintain those versions, we work along on different projects, we work along on different ideas that needs to be covered up. So what we do usually is that we work along with it, we ideate certain things, we create certain things, we create different versions and then maintain it. So it is not totally a common platform wherein we can work together. Rather, we work on different versions of it and maintain the code base. Now, what we'll be doing is that we'll take a look at GitHub and then we'll head back to our terminal, work along with it, and get to understand what the project repositories are. So first of all, what we'd be doing is that we'd head over straight to github.com. So let's just say, so at the base core, what we have is that GitHub is an open source tool which allows you to maintain version, in collaboration with people, as well as deploy the code. So when we are talking of software development, the three things that come up to our mind is that first of all, we need to build the code. So that's a very basic thing which could be started on any of the systems, any personal computer who has certain developer tools and integrated development environment. The next thing that comes up to the mind is that how do we test it? So to test and run the code, we can always do it onto the local host. But then comes the challenging part. The challenging part is that how do people work along with me? So when I speak of the question, how do people work along with me? The major question is that how will the people or the team members who are working along with me collaborate together with me? So these are the questions that we need to handle and to track. So for that, we need a solution which allows us to not only keep a track of the entire system, but also work along with it. So GitHub does provide us with certain tools, that is a cloud repository which keeps the track of a master repository, I would say, rather than a remote repository, which keeps a track of the entire progress, works along with people and then makes certain changes. The next thing that we come across is how do we work along with it? How do we work in tandem? So let's say each of us would be working on different versions. We would be creating and exploring new features. And at the end of the day, once we have successfully tested the code, we'll have to deploy it somewhere. So where do we deploy it and how do we deploy it? Those are the two or three major questions that we need to answer. So to deploy the code, we'll have to set up a server which is not on our local systems, but rather somewhere onto the cloud to which we do not have the access. So, have you ever thought a question in your mind that how does Google work? How does GitHub work? So, just taking the example of GitHub, how is actually GitHub catering to everyone? How is it that once we type github.com, we are redirected to a page like this, wherein we have our own profiles, we have our own documents stored over there. So, obviously, there is a server running somewhere to which there may be a team of 100 developers or 200 developers who are working along to just cater to the needs of GitHub. Now, how do these many people who are sitting remotely have the access to the server? That may be the question, because right now you are running your test codes on the local system, but for the world to be able to use it, to utilize it, it needs to be hosted somewhere on the internet. And when we talk of internet, in these days we do not have our physical servers, we have cloud servers. So how do we actually connect with the cloud server? How do we communicate with the cloud server? So that is the major question. And when I'm speaking of connecting with the cloud server, what we do see is that we will have to set up a pipeline. And to set up a pipeline, we have different other channels through which we can work along with it. But GitHub does actually allow us to do the same. So, without wasting much of time, what we'd be going through is that we would be practicing and getting a view of actual hands on. So I hope everyone does know certain few terms like repositories. How do we create certain repositories? We work along with it. So today what we'll be doing is that we'll be initializing a Git repo, working along with it, and then explore different features. So first of all, let's get started. What we'll be doing is that, let me just give it a name. Let's just make it public. I hope that everyone has got a basic understanding and from our prior workshops does know what public repository is, what a private repository is, what a local repository is. The next thing that we'll be doing is that we'll simply just copy the clone part of it, head back to our terminal window, open Visual Studio Code over here, and then simply type git clone. From here, what we'll be doing is that we'll be getting to understand how to work along with it. So as soon as we are done with it, what we do see is that we'll just copy and paste the template that we have created prior to this session for us to better understand how actually GitHub does work. So let's get back to the presentation once again, get to know what we'll be working along, and then understand how do these features work around. So uh, in this tutorial, what we'll be seeing is that the commands are actually typed in blue color and in this font. So the first thing first, when we are talking about a project, is that we create a folder, which we have already done over here. Now, what we are getting to hear two different terms, that is a folder and a repository. And while I was speaking of a repository, I also use terms like remote repository, local repositories, and so on and so forth. So what is actually a repository? A repository in project development lifecycle is nothing but a folder which our systems utilize, which could have accesses at different level, except for the fact that it has a .git hidden folder present in the folder structure. So to just confirm that, what we do see is that the repository that I had cloned does actually have .git project folder over here. So this .git project folder actually manages the entire project, works along with it, and helps us understand that okay, we are keeping track of different statuses, different commits, and we have a track record of the entire project development lifecycle. So with this, let's just get back to the Visual Studio Code. And what we do see is that I'll just close this. We have got a pre-made HTML structure which we'll be practicing on, which we will be working upon with. So the next thing that we'll be doing is that we would understand and install Git. So for those who haven't installed Git yet, we have the link that is git-scm/downloads, from where you can download the entire Git for your systems. The second thing, if you are not working on a Git repository, or if you have not cloned the repository from GitHub, is to initiate a new repository. And to initiate the repository, the command is git init and then the repository name. So let's say if we type in git init and GDTC1, what will happen is that we would be creating a new repository by that name. Now, basically, the next thing that we'll be understanding is that what are commits and what needs to be done. So basically, commits are just snapshots of states that we are actually storing. And what do we understand with snapshots is that we keep a track of different other features. We keep a track of the changes that we are making over the period. So what we'll do is that rather than sticking to the PowerPoint presentation, we'll simply head over to the hands-on tutorial so that we get to understand how actually you can utilize Git and GitHub to work to the fullest. So what we'll do over here is that you can see there's a file over here which is not yet present into the remote server, that is the remote repository. So to confirm, I am over here onto the repository and there are no changes that have been made. And right now just assume that I am a developer who is working on it and who is actually trying to test the code. So to test the code, what I can do is that I can simply press the run live server, or I can even open this file. So what I'll do is that I'll simply open. So with this, what I get to visualize is that the changes that have been made or the work that I have done over here are being reflected over here. Now let's say we have started to work on this folder, and what we need to do is that we will simply add in, let's say, HT tag and type in welcome to, and then just save it, and it appears over here automatically onto the server. Now assume, let's just save it and let the world get to know that we have started our GitHub workshop. So what we'll be doing is that we'll open the terminal. Now when we are opening the terminal, there will be two stages through which we would be actually committing the code. So to understand that, again, we would be hitting back to the PowerPoint presentation. And remember, we would be doing this a lot because we need to understand step by step what is actually happening. So basically, a commit works in this process where you add the changes that you have made onto the local repository, and then you provide that snapshot or that commit a name which allows it to be unified, or which would allow it to remain unique from all other changes that have occurred. So the next thing that we would be doing is that we would be understanding what commits are. So when I'm talking of commits, commit is basically the change structures that have been made. So let's say when we are talking about repository, what I'll be doing is that we'll be going through the changes, and each commit has got its commit number. So this way, and to check what are the commit history, what we can do is that we can simply type in git log, and then we will have the entire commit history that we have got. Now, the staging changes or the stages through which we commit the changes are actually, first of all, the commit remains unstaged, then we stage the changes, and then we commit the changes. So to stage a change, what we need to do is that we type in git add, then to commit the change, we do commit. And to get back to any prior history or any prior path, we can simply type git reset and the commit number. And with that, we get back to the original change area. Now, what we'd be doing is that we would simply save these changes. So to save the changes that we have made over here, what we need to do is that we will simply type in git add and a period. With these, all the changes would be made. Let's say I'll type a git commit message with the name welcome. So let this be the welcome commit. And as soon as I press enter, what you will see is that there are certain changes which are being saved with the commit number over here. Now for other collaborators to work along with me, what they need to do is that they will have to get to understand how actually it is working and they can contribute to it. So for them to be able to contribute, what they need to do is that we'll have to provide a public link. And remember, this is not yet been made public. This Git repository is individual to me, and yet is not public cause until and unless I will push this code onto the remote repository, that is github.com, no one would be able to view the changes that I am making over the period. So what do we do then? What we will be doing is that we will be simply what we will be doing simply is that we will simply push the code, and to push the code we will type in git push and press enter. With this, what you do see is that the code has been pushed, and if I head back to the terminal, sorry, to the Chrome window, what I do see is that index.html has appeared over here with a welcome message present over here. Now this is the same code that is present at that place. Now what I do need to do is that I will have to make certain changes. So the next step that we'll be doing is that, let's just say I'll add a paragraph. We are in we are starting with day one of GDTC, and I'll just save this and head over to the Chrome to just check that whether or not the changes have appeared. So what you do see is that the changes have automatically been reflected over here. Now what we'd be doing is that we would be working along with it. So let's say I'll just give it a name, and let the name be, I'll get back to terminal, and let's just say I'll type git add, and then I'll type git commit m and give it a name day one and press enter. So now if I will open git log over here, what you do see is that all the changes that have been made, that is welcome or day one, are being reflected over here. And as soon as I will press enter and push the changes, what you do see is that we have actually got the same code over here as well, with the commit being day one. So these are the features through which actually you can maintain the code, you can work along with. But when we are talking about multiple contributors, we'll have to manage the code. Now let's just say we get to understand what branches are, and suppose we need to have different iterations of the same code. Now assuming the fact that we have understood commits, what we'll be doing next is that we'll be going through a recap wherein we do see that INIT is being done. We have understood how to initialize a Git repository. We have added the files, we have committed the changes, and we have made certain resets, as well as we have gone through understand what Git log are and how useful these are. Now what we'd be going through is that we would be making certain changes and understanding how branches do work and what is the feature of a branch. So let's say right now, where does that go? Yeah, here we are. We are having a page for GitHub, hello GitHub, and the background is, I don't know what color is. Let me just say it is a mixture of yellow and white. So what we'd be doing is that I, at my core of heart, do feel that it is not looking that great. So I want to make certain changes. And how do I make those changes? So to make those changes, what I do need to do is that I'll have to make certain repercussions over here. What I'll do is that, let's say I have a gut feeling that that change would not look that good. So what I'll do is that I'd rather create a branch and work along with it. So let's just head over to the terminal and create a new branch, and the command to create a new branch is get checkout hyphen b and then the branch name. So let's say let us just give a name to it as new branch, or let's say new background. So new bg is the name of the new branch. Now over here, right now we are in new branch, and to check whether or not we are in the new branch, what we do is that we'll just type in the command git branch, and with it we will get the list of branches. So currently we are in the branch new bg. So over here, since now remember, while the development team is working on a project, there obviously has to be a certain fix. So if I'm working on, suppose GitHub is working on certain UI changes, it would allow other people to have a look at it. So what does happen is that they leave the main branch, which is actually being viewed by different people, the same. And by that, what I do mean is that if there's a website that is undergoing maintenance, what will happen is that people who are working on that website would be creating a branch and not making changes to the actual branch. So by actual branch, what I do mean is that there would be no changes affecting the master branch in which the server is live. So obviously they would be creating new branch, they would be testing their code, and then they would be working around with it. So let's say right now we are having the background color as wheat, and now there's a certain feeling that I have. Let's just try out certain color, and by color let's just try out red. And as soon as I press red and save the changes, what I do see is that there's a pretty ugly looking website right now. But had I made it live for anyone to see, then they may be saying that, okay, GitHub is testing out code. But that usually does not happen. So, just to confirm that actually the main branch is unaffected by the changes, what I'll do is that I'll simply go to the terminal and then check out the main branch. And as soon as I press enter and head to the same place, I'll have to just reload it once again. So to confirm that, what I do need to do is that I'll have to get over here. Let's just confirm where we are. So we are currently on to, where are we? Just let me type git branch. So we are onto the main branch, which has got the background color red. But what we do need to do is that we'll have to make it as the previous color. So what I'll type is that we'll simply type wheat over here and press enter and save the changes. So if I'm over here and let's just head over there, then check out new BG. What you do see is that new BG is also having the same color, which is wheat. Now, if I will make the changes, let's say convert it to red and save these changes, and at the same time check out to main, the changes have been modified over here. So this is how actually you are working along with it. You are making certain changes and you can work across it and also maintain that the remote repository does not get affected. So if I'll see over here, the main branch is having the color red, but if I head over to the master branch onto the remote repository over here, you do see that it has still got a background color of wheat, and if I do make it live, the changes won't be reflected over here. So this is how actually developers across the community, across the enterprises or organizations do work. Now, what we'll do is that we will quickly sum up the work that needs to be done understanding GitHub, and then we will head over to GitHub GUI, understanding it, and then getting started with the actual tasks for the day. So we have understood what how to create heads, how to work along with it, how to maintain certain branches, how to merge the code, and then at the end, what we'd be doing is that we would be deleting certain branches. And to delete a branch, what you need to do is that you will simply have to type git branch hyphen d and the name of the branch. So remember, when you are creating a branch, the command is git checkout hyphen b and the branch name. But if you are deleting a branch, the command is git branch hyphen d, d as in delta, and the branch name. With this, what we got to understand is that we have understood how people actually do contribute, check out, and work together along with different people. Now, the next thing that we'll be doing is that we'll have to understand how actually GitHub utilizes these features, and you can always have a public viewing file of your own. So let's say I'm over here onto GDTC page 1, and one of the unique feature which GitHub allows is that it allows you to host your public files, public repositories onto one of the servers, and simply provide them a name. And by name, what I do mean is that you can have your own website live through GitHub pages. And how do we do it? We'll soon be doing it right now. So let's just say I've found a missing connect which I need to rectify. And with this, you will also get to understand how you can easily make certain changes onto the GitHub itself. So let's just give it a name GDTC and then save it, commit the changes. Now, what I need to do is that I want this file or this website that I made to be reflected to anyone on the internet. And how do they see the outcome? Because this is only the code base. And how does this file actually look? How do I do it? So, what I'll do is that GitHub provides you with a unique feature which is known as GitHub Pages. And with GitHub Pages, what we do get is that we are allowed to actually view the changes that are present over here. And if I will just click on save and scroll down and just click on the link that I've got, okay, it has not yet been hosted, so just give it a few moments. So what will happen is that your page that you have made the changes onto, which is being reflected over here, would soon be shown to the entire world, and you will have a link to it through which you can allow people to view the changes that you have made. So at one end, you are working onto the code base over here through Git repositories. At the other end, what you do get is that you get to work along with the and reflect your code. So for me as a young developer, what I could do is that I could create a simple portfolio of mine wherein I'd be simply be creating a resume of mine. I'd be working along with it. I'd be mentioning certain names. I'd be mentioning my features which I am good at. So let's say I'm good at Java or I'm good at certain other language. I'm working along with it. I just mention it in my portfolio. I code it in HTML or CSS and then make it live for the world to see. So this way you do actually get a feature of GitHub through which you can work along with it. The next thing that we are going to understand with GitHub when we are talking about the features, GitHub does allows you to create certain issue to work along with the team. So when we are talking of an issue, let's say there's a team of 5 different developers working on the same code. How do we work on it? How do we mention that okay, these needs to be done and these do not need to be done? So let's say there's a team of 5 developers, 5 front end developers who are working on a code base, and one of the developers who is facing an issue needs certain help from some other developer. So what do we do then in that scenario? What we need to do is that we will have to create certain issues, make certain changes, and then host it. And how do we do that? So you can always create a new issue You can type it in the name. So let's just say I'll type in, let's say, uh, need help to change background color. Let's say I'm stuck with this problem. I'm not able to change the background color. So this usually do happen. And in our day-to-day scenario, what we do is that we simply ask our friends. So if suppose I'm wanting to change certain things and I'm not able to do, what I'll do in that case is that I'll simply type in a message uh, to them that's saying that okay, I need help to change the background color. Now assume there are 5 developers and you want all of them to know that you are facing certain issues. So what you can do is that you can simply type in need help to change the background color. Now, if suppose your task is assigned to a single person, what you can do is that you can select the person to whom you want to appoint this issue. So let's say there are 5 front-end developers and I want one of them to answer. I can simply select their name from the drop down and then assign it the task to it. As well as I can also provide certain labels to the issue. So since this is a case wherein I need help, I can simply provide it a label. Let's say help wanted. And I can also assign it to a project and a milestone. So what we'd be doing next is that we'd get to understand what a project and what a milestone is. Now, once I submit a new issue, what you do see is that anyone who has got the access to this repository would be seeing that there's an issue which is open, which says that need help to change the background color. Over here, you can also communicate with your fellow members. And how do we communicate is that, let's say so I didn't need to convey to the fellow developers that I was facing the issue, but how do they know that I have tried certain things? So what I'll do is that I'll simply type, I have tried using inline CSS and then comment so that if anyone has got any query, they can check, okay, that I have tried it out, but I've failed. Now, if certainly at some point the issue is being closed, that is, the help that was needing has been resolved, what I do need to do is that I'll simply type in close the issue, and with that, I'd be able to make certain changes. I'd be able to cover that issue up, and for everyone, they would be able to view that that case that I was facing has been resolved. Now, the next thing that we'll be looking at is the pull request. So, basically, what a pull request is that suppose I made certain changes and I want to suggest those changes. So, in that case, what we'd be doing is that we would be required to generate a pull request. So, say for example, since this is a public repository and everyone has got the access to it, what they do need to do is that they will have to come up to this repository, they will suggest certain changes, they will work on to it, and then they will commit the changes. And how do they do that? They would be working around with it, they will create a fork, they will make the changes that they want to, and then generate a pull request. So remember, if there's a huge project folder that needs to be addressed, what do we do then? So all the pull requests as a maintainer, which I will get over here, would be reflected right now over there if we generate a fork. So we can do that over as well. So what I can do is that I will simply create a fork from some other organization, let's say Incubate IND, and then head over there. And now I have got a repository of my own. That is a forked repository of GDTC day 1. Now what I do need to do is that I'll have to add certain files to it. And to add a certain file, what I do need to do is that I'll work along with it. So let's just say I'll make certain changes and say that the wheat color over here is not good. So I'll just go to edit section, then get over here and let's just say change the color to I'd say just change the color to blue. And with this, what we'd be doing is that I'll provide a commit message, change the background color, and then commit the changes. Now, if you will get over here, that is to the code, what you do see is that I'll have to, I have made certain changes and I want the maintainer of the code that I made certain changes which should look good to import those changes. So, how do we do that? I'll simply click on pull request and then create a pull request, and for the final time click on create a pull request. If I get over to this account over here and reload the page, what I do see is that a pull request has occurred, and if I want, as a maintainer of the code, I can always merge those changes directly over here by just clicking on merge the pull request. Or if I as a maintainer do feel that there are certain things that are to be checked, so say for example I want to see what are the changes that have been made, I can simply click over here and get the list of changes that have been made by that person, or I can even view the files changed and what has been actually been changed. So over here, as a maintainer, I do get to see all the features that are present over here. So say for example, certain developer has made certain changes to the files and is occurring over here. I could simply check the lines that he has removed in the red color and the lines that he has added in the green color. So this is how actually you can manage your code. You can understand the work along with the code. You can provide certain authenticity to people who are working along with it. Now, if you want to merge the code, all you need to do is that simply click on merge pull request and you'll be able to have the changes that have been suggested by certain person. Now, coming up next, what we do get with GitHub is that you get the feature of GitHub Actions. And what I do mean by GitHub Actions is that I'd be able to create a pipeline through which I can deploy the entire project directly to some place other. So with this, what I do mean is that you can have your own server connected with your repository, and then all the changes that you made over into that repository, when you are pushing the changes, would be reflected directly onto the live server, and you won't require any physical attention over there to make those changes. So GitHub Actions is basically an advanced feature of Git which we will be utilizing later on to understand how actually we can deploy our codes. Then there's another feature which allows us to understand GitHub more easily, and basically is that how do we organize the issues and project boards. So we'll be working on that as well in the later stages. And just for those who have got the pro account from GitHub Developer Pack, you will get certain features like networks and forks and other things through which you can have a view of it. So with this, you can actually track the changes that have been made. You can actually have a look at the repositories that are being worked, and you can basically have a graphical structure of what all the changes are being done onto the repository. So you get these features of insights, that is network graph, the pulse, and through which you can also set the accountability. So let's say for example, you want to see that who has contributed the most, so you get the person with the graph and the number of commits he is being making. You can always see the contributors who are working with the number of lines that they are adding, the number of lines that they have deleted, and the number of commits present over here, through which you can always access and maintain the code, as well as have a closer look at your developers who are working on the project. Then what you do need to do is that you can utilize these graphs in various other tasks like project management and actually reviewing the code base and working on other things. So you have got these many features, and with this you are able to work on it. Now, what we'll be doing is that I hope that we have covered up all the basic aspects of this. So I'll just end up the session over here of GitHub understanding. And then what we'll be doing is that we'll be heading to understand what is GitHub Developer Tech Camp Day 1, what are the tasks that needs to be done, and we'll be simply then porting the entire event directly to Slack workspace wherein we would be understanding what needs to be done. So I hope everyone is present into the Slack workspace, and what we'll be doing next is that today, right now, just after this workshop, that is this live session, we'll be heading straight to the Slack channel, wherein you will be provided with the links. We will be distributing into different groups and commitments. We would be assigning you a task wherein you would be required to fork those repositories. So we'd be providing you a link to the repository which will have the day one tasks assigned onto the README channel. That is by 1 p.m. you would be having the entire set of instructions that you need to do. All of you would be assigned the tasks, and we would be then having our communications over there itself. We would be introducing the mentors to you, we would be introducing how they are working along with it, and then the task for today, which would require you to simply create a fork, add on to a repository. So I hope that you all had a better understanding of what actually we would be doing in this next 4 days. We would be creating a repository, we would be working on it, and then at the end of the day we would be uh, trying to generate a pull request. If we do not succeed today, we would work on it, we would add certain layers to it, we would be utilizing the features of GitHub pages and other objects, and at the end of day 4 we would be having a complete repository set, and all those who successfully at the end of day 4 generate a pull request, their code should be published onto their organization. So when I speak of organization, the college organizations that we have created, the codes which the student participants would be creating would be published onto their organizations. So with this, we would straight away head over to the Slack channel. I hope that everyone has got the link to the Slack workspace. We are running ahead of schedule because we were supposed to have a guest speaker, but due to certain reasons, he or she was not able to join in. So what we'll be doing is that we will be quickly just answering all the queries that the student participants have. I'll just turn off my camera as well as a shared screen, and then let's just see what are the questions that are being held over here, and we'll quickly just work along with it. So let me just check what are the changes that are being suggested, and with this I'll just wrap up this session and we can simply head over to the next section. So thank you everyone, thanks a lot. We will soon meet in the Slack workspace. With me there would be Anuj and myself, Kaushik Roy. We would be handling all your queries, and we would be getting started with the first day one task. So let's just head over there. Thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone. With this, we'll just wrap up the session.